Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I rise today to push back against what could become one of the greatest government surveillance threats of our time, a central bank digital currency, or CBDC. My amendment would simply prohibit funding for the CBDC working group led by the Treasury Department. A CBDC, commonly referred to as a digital dollar, would be issued and easily tracked by the federal government. Make no mistake, a federal digital dollar can very easily be used to spy on American citizens and become a social credit system. In communist China, the digital yuan is being used to spy on its citizens and crack down on dissent. Do not think for a second that the Biden administration would not use a digital dollar to track your gun purchases. House Republicans have been clear that the Federal Reserve does not have the authority to issue a digital dollar without an act of Congress, and we have reaffirmed that in the Financial Services Committee on which I serve. However, right now, the Federal Reserve is contracting with the private sector to build potential digital dollars for the United States far beyond what could be considered traditional research. Early last year, President Biden issued an executive order directing government agencies to study creating a federal digital currency, which led to the creation of this CBDC working group. This working group is vaguely tasked with supporting the Federal Reserve's central bank digital currency efforts. To be clear, Congress has not given the executive branch or the Federal Reserve any direction when it comes to federal digital currencies. I'm grateful that the underlying bill prohibits federal funding for the establishment of a federal digital currency, but Congress cannot give an inch. Regardless of your thoughts on a potential digital dollar in the United States, I have severe concerns that Congress should not surrender any authority on such a significant issue. If this White House wants to research a government surveillance tool that the overwhelming majority of Americans oppose, that direction should come from Congress. That is why my amendment prohibits funding for the CBDC working group to prevent the executive branch from bypassing the will of Congress, and I urge my colleagues to support the bill. Thank you, and I reserve balance of my time.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Wisconsin seek recognition?
Mr. Chair, I claim the time in opposition.
The gentleman is recognized.
Thank you. I rise in opposition to this amendment. It seems short-sighted to defund an effort to even look at an issue. The Central Bank Digital Currency Working Group is intended to complete the Fed's efforts by considering the implications of a U.S. CBDC. It would be a good idea to examine whether there are economic benefits, including lower transaction and borrowing costs for U.S. households, businesses, and government. In addition, the U.S. uses sanctions and other financial measures to address national security threats and deny criminals and other illicit actors access to the U.S. and international financial system. Development of foreign CBDCs, including multi-CBDC platforms, could diminish the use of our dollar and the effectiveness of our tools in this space. I think it's at least worth letting Treasury look at the issue. I oppose this amendment, urge a no vote, and I reserve.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from West Virginia is recognized.
We have no further speakers. I yield back.
The gentleman yields. The gentleman from Wisconsin is recognized.
Mr. Chair, I yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from Massachusetts, Mr. Lynch.
The gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I thank the gentleman for yielding. I do want to point out that 130 countries right now, 90% of the world's central banks are studying, they're doing research on digital currencies and, in particular, government-backed digital currencies. So this amendment would prevent the United States from researching an area that 130 countries are right now researching. So it would put us very far back at the end of the pack. Mr. Chairman, as ranking member of the Subcommittee on Digital Assets, I rise in strong opposition to H.R. 4664, the Financial Services Appropriation Bill, and the misguided amendment that would essentially prevent our government from exploring and researching a government-issued central bank digital currency. This year witnessed the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank, Signature Bank, and other U.S. mid-sized banks holding a combined $500 billion in assets, an institutional banking crisis requiring decisive action by the FDIC, Treasury, and the Federal Reserve to protect American investors and the U.S. economy. We're also in the immediate aftermath of a catastrophic demise of the crypto market following the abrupt implosion of FTX, Celsius, BlockFi, and other crypto companies. Just this week, FTX founder Sam Bankman-Fried was convicted of 7 counts of financial fraud and conspiracy after he stole up to $14 billion from FTX customers and investors. Yet in this climate that demands regulatory oversight and thorough understanding of this market, this appropriations bill actually guts funding for critical agencies that serve to protect American investors, including the Securities and Exchange Commission. Moreover, to the great detriment of U.S. global economic leadership, the amendment under consideration would prevent the Treasury from even examining
The gentleman's time has expired.
government-backed central bank
The gentleman's
currency.
time has expired. The gentleman from... I'm sorry, repeat the time.
I would yield an additional minute.
The gentleman's yielded an additional minute. Gentleman from Massachusetts.
As
can
I said,
continue.
Mr. Chairman, more than 130 countries and 90% of the world's central banks are exploring their own government-backed digital currencies. We should not be suppressing innovative approaches without fully evaluating its benefits and the risks to the American public. So, Mr. Chairman, I urge my colleagues to join me in opposing this bill and the amendment that would impede common sense regulation and research and innovation. I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields. The gentleman from Wisconsin is recognized.
We oppose this amendment, and I yield my time back.
The gentleman yields. The question is on the amendment offered by the gentleman from West Virginia.